Welcome to the Mold Matters Podcast. Whether you are looking for help recovering from mold illness or just want to learn more about creating a safe environment for your family, this podcast is the place for you.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Mold Matters Podcast. Tuning in from Layton, Utah with Mike Adams, co-host with me, Jeremy Evans. It's been a couple weeks. We're coming at you with a new podcast today. Just a reminder of what you can expect from this podcast. We try to touch on topics that we feel are pertinent as it relates to mold, and a huge part of that relates to health and health symptoms. In fact, I would even say the only reason that mold is important in our lives is because it does affect our health.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't think we would be doing a podcast about it.
No.
Who would really care about it?
No, we wouldn't care.
We wouldn't care.
No.
The EPA wouldn't care.
No. Center for Disease Control wouldn't care.
No. Sometimes they...
Utah Jazz wouldn't care.
Yep. And no one would have athlete's foot. Is that a fungus?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a common denominator for moldy homes is,
They'll get...
well, we see it when we treat the homes. They've got athlete's foot stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really common denominator. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you have it. So that's kind of what you expect from this podcast. We're traditional. Well, we're remediators in the mold industry. We do a lot of non-traditional treatments as well as traditional at times. And that's kind of our unique perspective, I would say, on the topic.
Yeah.
We're not... there are other podcasts out there that address from different angles. They're all good. And so today we're actually going to do a little something different. We actually are part of many different Facebook pages. Some of them have thousands of people who are subscribed to those pages, and they ask lots of different questions about mold illness. And I scroll through them, and I'll answer them when I have some downtime, just for fun. Share my opinion, and I think it's kind of fun. And I was talking to Mike yesterday. I said, "Man, we should answer some of these on the podcast."
Yeah. Not because we've run out of things to talk about, certainly.
No way.
No, because we want to answer questions.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes I don't know what to say, but these
This will guide us.
This will give us some
Yeah.
good stuff to talk about, and sometimes, maybe we don't know the answer, but these are, if you're interested, there are lots of Facebook groups where people talk about mold.
There are thousands. It's amazing. Yeah.
It's crazy. And so if you're one that's interested, search those out and join them. There's some bad advice on them.
Yeah,
sometimes,
there's some
in
really
my
bad
opinion.
advice. Yeah.
There's some good advice on there as well.
Yeah.
So here we go. This is from the Mold Sensitivity and Toxic Awareness Facebook group. A gal asked, small amount of mold found in the furnace. Could that small amount really be causing all the allergy issues I've been having? I'm also allergic to dust mites. I'm having difficulty nailing the true culprit. Every time I turn on my HVAC system, I feel sick.
Yeah, my first thought is, a couple of things. One is, what you can see may not even be 1/100th of the problem, because you can't see inside your ductwork.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say, I've got mold in my furnace, well, it's really hard to quantify even how much mold you have.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as whether I think that's her issue health-wise or not, I just about guarantee you that's the issue. Particularly in HVAC systems where you've got differences in temperatures, high temperatures, low temperatures. Air conditioning runs, they get cold. Then, if it's in the summer, then they start to condensate. You get mold throughout the HVAC system. Every time you turn it on, you're carrying mold throughout your home.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it can give you all kinds of problems with your health. And so, did she talk about cleaning the HVAC? She didn't, did she?
No.
Sometimes I've even talked to people who said, I had my HVAC cleaned, and it actually made it worse.
Mm.
And that happens a lot because HVAC companies don't typically use a sterilant to take care of the mold. They use, something more like a disinfectant.
That may not do well against mold.
Right. And sometimes you actually just make the mold really mad at you as
Yeah.
opposed to killing it.
Yeah.
And when mold gets stressed, it spores out even more,
Yeah.
and you can create a real problem if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the answer is yes, absolutely. I think your HVAC is part of your problem.
Yeah, and there are ways to treat those. It's pretty. I don't know if common's the right word, but I regularly, throughout my work, people will complain of the HVAC when I turn it on.
Yeah, when I turn it on.
When I turn it on, I feel sick. When I turn it on, it smells
Yeah.
musty.
Yeah.
When I turn it on, my symptoms come back. And yeah, in some cases it could be other stuff, but I feel like because of what you've described, how HVAC systems work, and they have the water and it gets trapped in there, it gets
Mhm.
hot and cold, it's most likely going to be a mold thing.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, we see it a lot in high humidity areas, down in the south, where they'll run their air conditioners hard, and then they just the coils get soaking wet,
Yeah.
and then they grow mold,
Yeah.
and then they turn on the fan, and it sends the mold throughout the home. So it's an issue. It really is.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to give you another one, Mike.
Okay.
See if you can handle this one.
All right.
Enviro Air UVC light. Has anyone tried installing this Enviro Air UVC ultraviolet light on their furnace? Was it helpful in eliminating mold spores? Thank you for your feedback. And Enviro Air, there's lots of brands that do the same thing, where you
Right.
can install basically UV lights
Yeah.
in the lining of your HVAC system.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on those, Mike?
Well, I without being a UV light expert,
Yeah.
I can only go by real life experience and the thousands of people I've talked to over the course of the years that I've worked in this industry. I've never run into anybody that said, "Wow, that turned my life around when I put that UV light on." I've never seen it. And I think part of the problem, I did some research on it a couple of years ago, and I actually wrote a blog about this. But for a UV light, if I remember the details on this, for a UV light to actually kill a mold spore, that spore has to be within 2 or 3 inches of the light for 10 seconds. And so in the blog, I kind of described how, okay, let's picture your average HVAC ductwork and the air and the mold spores screaming through that ductwork as it's running. And we're assuming that UV light is going to somehow talk the mold spores into, hang tight, guys, just for a couple of seconds. Come join around me, so I can kill you. It's not going to work.
If they had a mold magnet,
Some kind of mold magnet, yeah.
that would be
Yeah.
great, and it could just corral it to the UV. Because
Yeah.
UV light, so what you're saying is that UV light can kill a mold spore.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But that's not the issue.
Yeah, the issue is the mold's not going to hang around long enough for the UV light to do it.
Yeah, airflow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess if your whole venting system was lined with UV lights, you could
Yeah.
maybe get some. But yeah, it's just a small little section that has the UV light. And there's just not nearly enough time for that
Yeah, it's really good, particularly on a home that has, we talked about this on other podcasts, but has an elevated mold load.
Mm-hmm.
You've got mold growing and sporing throughout the home. That problem is getting worse and worse. That elevated mold load home is going to be worse tomorrow than it is today. It's going to be worse next week than it was last week. And to think that UV light could even make 1/100th of a % difference is just, it's, in my mind, it's kind of a pipe dream.
Yeah, I had a lady ask me before Christmas. She was going to buy. She'd actually already bought 8 ultraviolet units to install on. She had 3 or 4 HVAC units. She was asking my opinion, and I kind of described basically what you just described. And she ended up sending them back because those things are kind of
They're
expensive.
really expensive.
Um,
And if we're wrong on this, if somebody has something that knows there's something you guys are missing about this,
yeah,
let us know. We'd love to know.
yeah, I
But
agree.
again,
yeah.
we can only go with our real life experience, and that is that like I say, I've yet to run into anybody that said, "Wow, I was sick from mold,
Yeah,
and I put a UV light on, and the world got better quickly.
In fact, if anyone from EnviroAir wants
Yeah,
to come
please.
on our podcast and talk about it,
that'd be
that'd be
awesome.
great.
Yeah.
Because, I'm same with you. I'm not a huge expert, but logically it doesn't make a ton of sense. So, that's a really good question. Let's go to our next one. This is another guy from a different group. Just had a mold remediation company person come to our house. She downplayed a lot of concerns.
Wait a minute, was that a mold guy or a fun guy? Okay, never mind.
I think it was
Okay.
either way.
All right.
She downplayed a lot of concerns I had in a respectful and kind way. For example, she said it's probably not necessary to remove all the carpets and that our clothes could be washed in the appropriate mold detergents. Also, she said it's fairly straightforward job and that I should be fine once the job is done. The ventilation system cleaning should help tremendously, she said. I know there are lots of sick people on this group, myself included, but could what she said be accurate?
I guess my answer to that is, of course, it could be accurate. It depends on the person. I would guess that if you are sick from the mold, and you're sick enough to be asking a question on a website like this or a Facebook page, then you have elevated mold in your home.
Mm-hmm.
And to downplay it, I think, is maybe a little bit of an injustice to you and your situation. I don't know of any mold detergent that would take care of your clothes. There are methods that can be used to completely sterilize the home, including anything that's porous, like your clothes and your furniture and whatever, and carpet. But to downplay and just say, just kind of clean things up, I think that's not a fair statement to somebody that's sick with mold.
Yeah. Now, the lady also said it's probably not necessary to remove all carpets and that our clothes could be washed in appropriate mold detergents. I'm assuming instead of throwing them away. Do you think that's accurate?
As far as the clothes, no. I think once you get mold in your clothes, you've got to do something more aggressive than just wash them in the washing machine with. I honestly don't know what mold detergent would be other than maybe borax.
Yeah, because you talked about that last episode as
Yeah.
a good, but that's maybe more preventative.
Yes,
not
more preventative.
Not after it's extreme.
Yeah, everybody knows that when you have a batch of towels and you let them get moldy once, then they're kind of like, they're going to have a tendency to be moldy if you leave them in the washer from then on for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And that's simply because detergent doesn't kill the mold.
Yeah.
So, as far as replacing the carpet, there are ways that we have where you can save a lot of this stuff, and it doesn't have to be torn out. But I can guarantee you, just cleaning your carpet with, calling a carpet cleaner and saying, "Come clean my carpet to get rid of the mold," absolutely will not work.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. And that was a good point about the towels, because that stuff just never gets out. And it's the same with your clothes. It's the same with your carpets and furniture. Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why people that are sick from mold and they think, well, I just need to get out of this environment. I need to leave this home and move somewhere else.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't get better even after they do that. And the issue is they're taking all their stuff with them.
Mm-hmm.
And all their stuff has mold on it, just like their home had mold.
Yeah.
And so you're going to start that cycle all over again in that new home that you moved into because, like I say, all of your couch has mold, your clothes have mold.
Yeah.
Everything has mold on it.
Yeah. Speaking to this lady's concern of, she's a lot of people wonder, like, is it in my head? That's very common. Like, am I just making this up?
Yeah.
Because, people doubt and question them, and the doctors don't know.
Yeah.
And I always like sharing fresh examples. I actually did part of a mold remediation treatment this morning.
Mm-hmm.
And their test, that we took some air tests in the area, and they were so high. I mean, I can't remember the Stachybotrys, but it was like, maybe I'll pull it up. It was like in the hundreds. They also had tons of Eulocladium, which is kind of a rare mold that typically only appears, in my experience, when it's really bad.
Yeah.
Lots of Chaetomium.
I was going to say Chaetomium. Yeah.
It was just, and I actually don't feel like I have a sensitivity to mold like many do. Yeah. But I walked in there.
Yeah.
And here's what was interesting. I've had this only happen a few times. I didn't feel it in my throat. I didn't feel it in my my sinuses.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt inside not good.
Yeah.
I couldn't even describe it. I was just
Yeah.
like, I just feel all of a sudden heavy,
Yeah.
and like a weight is on my inside, pulling
Yeah.
me down, type of a thing. So, I say that because I don't really know. I don't relate to. I can't empathize with people who have the severe stuff.
Mhm.
But when I go into a really moldy environment,
Yeah.
man, it
Yeah.
can knock me off my feet.
And I've talked to, like I say, hundreds of people over the years. It's actually really sad because the ones who get real sick and start having neurological issues,
Mhm.
they go into depression or anxiety or all kinds of neurological problems, and along with that, they start to have all kinds of self-doubt, like maybe I'm just nuts. No, you're sick. You're really sick, and you need to get this mold taken care of.
Yeah, I just pulled up the report. Check out those numbers for that.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's there's 150 Stachy, 720 Catomium. Both of those are what we call marker molds. 54,000 Penicillium/Aspergillus.
Yeah,
Total count of 57,000.
yeah,
Yeah, that home is.
yeah.
And we've talked about this before on other podcasts, but I always think when you take a air quality test
Mm-hmm.
and you're just trapping 75 liters of air
Mm-hmm.
in that one snippet of 5-minute time period
Mm-hmm.
on that one day, you're not even getting a portion of what's really going on in that home.
Yeah,
So that home could be way, way worse than even that showing.
yeah, yeah.
It's-
Totally. We have to do a podcast, Mike, on how to interpret air tests.
That's a great idea.
Because we've talked about air
Yeah.
tests, and there's huge variability in how to interpret them. Maybe
We should learn how to do that first,
Yeah,
and then we'll have a podcast on it. Yeah.
I think bare minimum we could give some guidelines
Yes,
for
we
people.
could. Yes.
Okay, let's go to the next one, Mike. I really want to hear people's thoughts about who have used pure encapsulation. We have some mold in a crawl space that needs remediation. When that's done, I'd like to use pure encapsulation, mainly for peace of mind. There is no way my husband will ever agree to just throw our stuff out. We have had several expensive rugs, plus he built all the art and crafts furniture in our home. I have tons of craft supplies that can be washed. I assume companies that run the ozone machines are dangerous or not effective, ? Please respond if you have used them.
I don't. I'm not. I'm familiar with encapsulation. The process of encapsulation. I'm not familiar with pure encapsulation. I
Yeah.
was just going to Google it real quick, and I don't see anything right offhand. But
Yeah, pure encapsulations.
do you see anything?
Oh,
Anyway.
hypoallergenic nutritional supplements? I'm not sure if
Maybe
that's
not,
what she was
yeah.
referring to, but
Usually, what people are
you can
talking
talk
about.
to the ozone. She did mention ozone.
Yeah, I can talk to ozone. I can also talk about, for example, crawl spaces and
Yeah.
encapsulation.
Yeah.
With crawl spaces, obviously crawl spaces are problematic for mold. Almost everybody that has a crawl space is dealing with the issue. There are a number of people who say you need to just vent it well and that will solve your problem. Other people say, nope, you need to put a vapor barrier down, that will solve your problem. Other people say, no, you need to condition the air of the crawl space just like you condition the air of the house. That will solve your problem. Other people say, no, you need a membrane that goes the entire footprint of the crawl space and up the wall and then is sealed all the way around, and that will solve your problem. My experience tells me that there is not any silver bullet out there.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't one thing that is going to solve every problem, and it's basically because everybody has different climates. Everybody has different moisture levels in their soil. Everybody has different layouts in their house. And so it's really, you've got to take it a case-by-case, take it on as a case-by-case situation. You can't just say, no, this is what you need to do for crawl spaces.
Yeah.
I do know this, trying to make the air in the crawl space condition just like the house is, that's a mistake. I've never seen that work.
Using a unit, like an air conditioning unit?
Yeah, they'll
or-
actually run vents and just almost like, we're going to heat this crawl space just like we heat the family room.
Yeah.
You know, that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
I've seen vapor barriers that actually trap the moisture and grow mold. It would have been much better to not have a vapor barrier at all. I've seen homes that don't have vents. They needed vents to keep air movement.
To the outside?
Yep, to keep air movement. And so at least you can drop your dew point temperature inside the house or inside the crawl space. So there's like I say, it's a case-by-case deal. We have ways of treating it to get it back to, okay, that's as good as it was when the house was brand new, and we can keep it that way. But it entails a little bit simpler process than, encapsulation. The other idea with encapsulation is some guys just say, what we need to do is just paint over it with something like Kills.
Yeah.
You've heard of Kills.
Yeah.
The funny thing about Kills, if you read the label really close, it says not to be used on mold.
Really?
Yeah. And
that's what everyone uses it for.
It's terrific marketing on their part. It's like, Kills. This kills, honey. Let's paint this on.
Yeah.
And
you don't have to say it kills mold. You just name your product Kills.
Yeah.
And people assume.
That's
genius.
It's genius.
Genius marketing.
It's also not very good. Yeah. That's not going to kill your mold. It's not going to make your mold any less dangerous. That's the answer to that. The other part was the ozone.
Yeah, I'd like you to hear talk about ozone.
Yeah, ozone, from my research, again, it's kind of like the UV light. I've yet to run into somebody that says, wow, I was sick, and then we installed some ozone machines in our home, and I feel better. In fact, I've seen the exact opposite. I've seen ozone machines make them even sicker than they were when they were just sick from the mold.
Yeah.
And they think they're just getting more and more sick from the mold, and it's actually, no, you're getting more and more sick because you've added ozone to your already toxic home.
Yes.
And so be really, really careful with ozone machines. Even the EPA has said that in order to run ozone machines at a high enough level to actually make a difference on mold, you're running them at a very, very unhealthy level. And so they can be really dangerous. So I don't think that's the way to go.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I've never heard anyone either who said, yeah, ozone solved my problems.
Yeah, no, never.
I did have one lady that I'm remembering just now. She actually had carpet in her bathroom. We talked about this last week.
Yeah.
And she said the only way to keep the mold smell at bay was run ozone basically 24/7 in her bathroom. And I thought, she's like, if I turn it off, my symptoms come back within a couple of days. And I thought, yeah, you're just keeping it at bay. And also, ozone can be corrosive to different parts and things, electronics and.
We had a booth at the American Indoor Hygienists Association in St. Paul a couple of years ago. And I had a guy come through, and he looked at what we did, and he misunderstood what we did. He thought we were ozone people. And he said, I've made a living on creating products that counteract the damage you guys do to homes. I said to him, well, I think you got us confused with somebody else, because we don't have complaints like that ever. And he said, you're the ozone guys, right? No, we're not ozone. So yeah, it is really hard on any kind of like rubber seals or gaskets or any kind of soft like material. It's really, really hard on it. So
just eats it up. Yeah. Okay. I say we do one last question.
Okay.
Mike, and then let me see if I can get back to the questions on my computer.
Okay. If you need help with any IT related things, I can help you.
And I know this is a good one, Mike.
Okay.
A question from someone here said, anyone have mold illness in their hair?
Their hair.
Anyways.
So that brings up some thoughts, doesn't it? Like, is the mold actually in their hair, which is possible? And I would suggest a good tea tree oil shampoo would probably take care of that.
Yeah.
Or is it the mold is causing health problems and maybe their hair is starting to fall out, something like that.
Their hair's starting to get it.
It's not uncommon at all.
Well, and that leads me to this. This will be our last question. Because we talked about this one before.
Yeah.
Is dizziness or blurred vision related to mold? It helps a bit when I use allergy eye drops and moisturizing ones. It burns when first inserted. My eye doc says my eyes are very dry and show inflammation. He's tried steroids or stasis. allergy drops, nothing helps much. Can dizziness, blurred vision be a mold-related thing?
Yes, and not obviously we're not doctors,
Yeah.
but
In your experience.
in my experience, with talking to, like I say, thousands of people, it runs the gamut of what mold can do to you.
Yeah.
Any kind of inflammation problems can be related to mold.
Yeah.
It just, the way one doctor explained it to me, actually more than one doctor has explained it to me, but the one I first learned when I was first learning about all this, it stuck with me. His explanation is, he said, look, we all have the ability to handle toxins in our body.
Yeah.
Some of us are better at it than others, but everybody kind of has the ability to gather all the toxins in your body, put them in a bucket, and dump them every once in a while. That's the analogy he used.
Yeah.
And he said, however, there are some people whose bucket gets full too fast and they can't dump it fast enough.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that end up with all kinds of inflammation problems, all kinds of neurological problems. Just it runs the gamut, and it can even be like, your body is trying to readjust to what's going on. And like for example, we talked about my mom's illness. What they ended up, they thought it was MS, and I look back now, it was all mold. But she had constant inflammation. She was constantly being put on a steroid and pain pills.
Yep.
And it's a terrible way to live. So yeah, absolutely, it's not being a doctor, but I've seen it.
Yeah, in fact, because that's a pretty common question. People want to say, here's my symptoms, is it mold?
Yeah.
And not that that's a bad question, but I think that maybe isn't the best question if you're really trying to figure out if you have mold illness. Because like you said, it could really be anything. I mean, it can be blurred vision, it could be any kind of allergenic response.
And sometimes I think, and I've had doctors confirm this, sometimes I think it's a combination of stressors. Like, maybe you just have emotional stress in your life, and then now your home is full of mold. Those two together are enough. You hit the tipping point and your health just goes awry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, and we've talked about coming up with something like this, but it'd be good to have, and there are some out there, checklists, basically something you can fill out that at the end of that would say, yeah, you very likely may have a mold concern. Like, have you had leak or water issues in the last so many years? Is your house older than 30 years old?
Are your rain gutters properly installed?
Kind of a lot of that stuff we talked about last time. Even just do you see buildup in your windowsills? Does there smell coming under your? A lot of those types of questions, I think, might be a little more helpful in determining if you're, are you sick when you're in the house versus when you're out? Yeah. That doesn't always work, but often it is.
More times than not, it works.
Like if I'm inside and then when I go out for a walk, I feel better.
I think I've told you this, Jeremy, before, but my wife thinks I'm nuts. Because anybody who tells me, they've got health problems, I'm automatic, no, that's mold. That's mold. Yeah, you've got mold. And honestly, I'm starting to kind of lean like mold is making a lot of people really sick. I mean, I've been leaning this way for 10 years now, but I see it every day. And I talk to people, from all over the country, and it's a huge issue. And whether it's their main problem with their health or just it's making their
contributor.
Yeah, it's a contributor. Whatever it is, mold always seems to be a factor. Yeah, it's crazy. I tell my wife I can walk down the mall, and just by looking at people's eyes, I think I can tell you if you have mold in your home or not. I know that sounds crazy.
That does sound crazy.
Yeah, but seriously, I see it. I can see it under their eyes, kind of a peaked darkness under their eyes.
Interesting.
It's really common. Yeah.
Wow, Mike, you just took yourself to the next level as a remediator.
I know. Yeah.
You can see it in people's eyes.
Yeah.
Do you kind of when you're doing a mold inspection, do you look deep into people's eyes?
Oh, I have one of those things that I look in their eyes.
Oh
no, I don't.
Yeah, it's part of the inspection.
Yeah,
you got to inspect the person.
Yeah, I have a little tongue depressor.
No. Some people inspect the home to see if the person's being affected.
No,
you inspect the person
to see if the home is sick.
Yeah. What's funny is, again, I do air tests all the time, and and talk to part of our mold inspections is just we really do. Half of it is interviewing the customer, and half of it is investigating the home. And so I actually didn't know this customer had any symptoms, but I got the air test back, and really high Stachybotrys, really high Penicillium aspergillus, which certain strains can be toxic, right? And so I sent her the results, and I'm like, this is bad. Yeah. This is bad in your house.
Not to be an alarmist, but this is bad. Yeah.
I mean, I'm careful. I mean, if it's just a little bit, then I try to match my tone to the. Yeah. I mean, we're talking. I think one of the bathroom was over 100,000. Yeah. To me, that warrants a little bit of alarming.
Yes.
Come to find out, it was one of those things where. Anyways, basically found out that this person had been going to a doctor for some sinus concerns, and the question arose like, well, would sinus even be a thing that would could be? And in my mind, I'm like, that's what, top 3?
Yeah, right.
At least sinusitis, right? I mean, that's a very common. Yeah.
Even the Center for Disease Control is bought in on that one.
Yeah.
That I think they say 93% of all sinus infections can be related to indoor mold.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like to your point, how many people are sick and they just have no clue that, they have no clue that it's related to mold at all. Yeah. So, and this was an older house. That's part of it too. But anyways, I think that was a good podcast, Mike.
And it's a great podcast.
I mean, I would listen to that.
I would too.
I will listen to it.
I have to make sure
make sure we didn't, say anything too embarrassing.
No. Yeah.
Because we don't edit these. These are raw. So, anyways, thank you guys for joining. Any final thoughts, Mike?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Hang in there.
See you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Mold Matters podcast. Be sure to subscribe for more in-depth information on mold illness and recovery.